And I've got 2 words that I want you all to remember. They're very important. And if I leave you with anything, I'm going to leave you with these 2 words. And those 2 words are, I'm Batman.
So every time I go to make a video like this, it's often so confusing and surprising to the point where I feel like, have I slipped into another timeline? Because this Flash movie has been through development hell, it feels like, for a long time. And now it's got up to the point where, okay, it's coming out 2022, I believe, at some point. And now Michael Keaton, obviously, who's played Batman, is in talks to reprise his role. Like, what kind of Flashpoint movie is this? And it's not actually as what you may be thinking. He isn't playing a Thomas Wayne. He's actually in talks to reprise his role as Bruce Wayne. But also want to talk about the possibility as well, and you may have read this around, that Jeffrey Dean Morgan is still apparently being eyed for the role of Thomas Wayne in this Flash movie. So it's like, what is going on? 2 older Waynes, literally, Michael Keaton, Bruce, and then we got freaking Jeffrey Dean Morgan still apparently being a Thomas Wayne in this Flashpoint. I don't know what's going on, but let's talk about it. But how's it going, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to a brand new Flash Batman-y kind of video. I don't know, call it DC video, DC movie video. As I said, hope you're all doing well on this fine day. Thank you for joining me today. If you're not subscribed, why not subscribe? Because, you know, quite a lot of the ratio of this audience isn't subscribed, but you still keep coming back to the channel. So maybe today is that random ass video where you guys do decide to, you know, subscribe to my thoughts on the channel. But let's get right into this. So I'm going to read it from Deadline, just because they have the shortest summary, but they've also shown some information which I find very interesting about this role, which a lot of people are literally going, huh, about, but even me included. And I want to get into my speculation of what I think that is happening with all of this, and just try and make sense of all of it, because it really is, I mean, it's Flashpoint. It's going to be confusing. They've already said, literally, the director said it's going to be Flashpoint. I'm paraphrasing here, but not what you're expecting. Deadline has confirmed that Michael Keaton, who first played the big screen version of Batman in 1989 for Warner Brothers and its 1992 sequel Batman Returns, is in early talks to return to the role once again. Keaton would play Batman in then this is where it gets interesting, in a Nick Fury-like role, starting with Warner Brothers' The Flash starring Ezra Miller, and could continue to play the Dark Knight in other upcoming DC movies. And don't forget about this one, guys, because apparently this has been on the back burner for quite a while, and I've been talking about this forever now. Movies like Batgirl. Reportedly, the Keaton Batman won't impact the mythology being hammered out by Matt Reeves' reboot, The Batman, starring Robert Pattinson as the Cape Crusader, and it will pick up his storyline after Batman Returns. So, right out the gate, we're being led to believe, now stick these facts in your head, I guess they're not dead-ass facts, but like that these are what is to be believed moving forward with this new information. That this Michael Keaton isn't just like another Bruce Wayne. This is his Batman 89. Like, he's reprising his role. He is that Batman from that movie. And in the new Flash movie, it will, technically speaking, be in continuity with those movies. Like, this is just an older version of that character, which is so interesting. I got so many thoughts with this. So, okay, I'm digesting that. That's interesting. You're actually somehow, during this Flashpoint movie, whether Barry's new timeline that he's created, it syncs up the Batman 89 movie verse with his world, and that's why this Bruce is... I don't know how they're getting there, but all I know is that this is actually Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne, and he's this old. However, this is where things get even more interesting. It's like, okay, Keaton would play Batman in a new Nick Fury-like role. So obviously, like Samuel L. Jackson's Nick Fury was scattered throughout the Marvel movies in many different appearances. They're thinking, apparently, that, okay, if Michael Keaton signs on for this Batman role, we might have him popping up in various movies, including, like, Batgirl. That was interesting, because if you guys didn't know already, Batgirl seems to be a thing, apparently, they want to come to fruition, just like the Nightwing movie that is somehow apparently existed, but never existed and never came to fruition. Do you see what I mean? That's why I never take stuff like this too seriously when thinking about other movies like Batgirl. However, I do think there is more merit to the Batgirl film than any of the Nightwing stuff in the past, like the long past. Don't get me wrong, I think that was a project that they wanted to happen, but obviously it's not happening anytime soon. But Batgirl may very well. Many places are still reporting, and this is just self-explanatory anyway, I feel, that the Matt Reeves, Robert Pattinson Batman trilogy is the main, Batman focus going forward. This is more just like, hey, we're doing some other things, and hey, we can bring in Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne. But by the way, our Robert Pattinson Batman, that's like the main drive. That is our Batman, our main canon Batman moving forward, if you know what I mean. But that doesn't mean that they can't do other things like this. But then there's some other interesting news, and it is a rumor, but like I've heard this from very good sources as well, and it's not just me hearing this. Just like this information about Michael Keaton being cast as obviously his Bruce Wayne from Batman 89, the Jeffrey Dean Morgan stuff is being still circled around the internet. So apparently Jeffrey Dean Morgan is still being eyed to play Thomas Wayne in this movie. So if that is true, let's just assume that is true, we're going to have an older Bruce Wayne who's been Batman, who looks like he could be, and what everyone is thinking, including myself, if they're thinking of doing a Nick Fury-esque role in future movies in the new DCEU canon moving forward after Flashpoint, and who knows what that will try and retcon, what that will try and fix. It feels like Michael Keaton would be better as a Batman Beyond-esque Bruce Wayne with his little stick. And by the way, I know he's not that old, but you could technically put it down to, okay, he's older now than Batman 89, but also his body has been put through a living hell, and that's why he needs the Batman Beyond support that character has in Batman Beyond. Like, he's a much older, crippled-esque Bruce Wayne, and that would be really cool if they take that approach, I suppose. But what comes along with me thinking about Michael Keaton reprising his role as Bruce Wayne is that, okay, in this Flashpoint world that Barry's created through trying to save his mother from even dying or whatever, they decide to go with in this movie, does that mean we're going to get the Burton Gotham? Are they going to have to recreate that? I have all of these kind of questions, which I think is very relevant considering we're getting Michael Keaton actually being the same Bruce Wayne as he was in that movie. So it just makes me think, are they going to get rid of that because it's like this new Flashpoint timeline, so they don't have to technically carry the aesthetic from Gotham and Tim Burton's Gotham? But then again, they very well could. But then what happened to the Justice League, or should I say Batman versus Superman Gotham, Ben Affleck's Gotham? There's so many questions with this. And what happened to Ben Affleck? I know, don't get me wrong, there's a bit of an elephant in the room in terms of how he's done with the role. And now you're bringing in, another Bruce Wayne who's much older, and you can explain this all the way with Flashpoint. I'm totally down with that. They might even get Ezra Miller's Flash to prod a joke at, hey, wait, you don't look like you. You can easily imagine a quirky kind of cringy line coming out of Ezra Miller like that. Say what you will about Ezra Miller's Flash. I'm not totally on board with it, but you get what I mean. You know what he was like in Justice League with the little comments every now and again? You can easily imagine that with him wondering what happened to the Ben Affleck one. So there, I guess, I think the audience is smart enough. I think, the comic book audience will definitely understand what's going on. I think the way they'll tell the movie to the general audience, it will be quite plain to them as well that the reason why things are so different in this movie are because of a very specific set of events through Barry changing the timeline, which will allow that general audience to be like, oh, this is how they're managing to bring the Batman from the old movie into this canon right now. Because I think, it's not out of this world to think that this potentially will confuse some general normie, moviegoers. But one also has to assume, after hearing at least a very foundation of news with this, with how he potentially will play a Nick Fury-esque role in multiple DC movies moving forward, is that, Flashpoint does get resolved in such a way that some things return back to normal, but not everything. So you have to take out of this that Michael Keaton's Batman, I guess, will take over from completely the Affleck version. Or maybe there could still be a younger Bruce, but we're not going to see him. Just forget about Ben Affleck for a second. But after Flashpoint is resolved, after this movie, if he's still going to be potentially appearing in other movies like Batgirl or just like whatever down the line, multiple DC movies, right? Then this Michael Keaton, through the Flashpoint changes that caused him to appear in the first place, is going to be maintained throughout the future movies, which is just weird. I still don't know how I feel about this. I know like a lot of people are really excited. It's really cool. And don't get me wrong, it's not like I'm not. I think I'm too focused on the details here and how this could pertain to the story and what this means for the DC cinematic universe or extended universe, whatever you want to call it, the DCEU moving forward. If you ask me, I would prefer a much more kind of straight up adaptation of a really big Flashpoint story, but then again, I have faith that they're going to twist it and manipulate it in such a way that doesn't mean that it's necessarily bad, or like, I don't think that automatically means it's going to fail just because they're not doing some of the more popular points from the Flashpoint story. And who knows, we could get literally a Batman Beyond kind of universe in the DCEU moving from here on out in the future. As I just said, if he's going to be in multiple movies, the Flashpoint storyline gets resolved in this Flashpoint movie, which you would have to think it will. It'll be from start to finish in one big movie. We're going to have Michael Keaton left over after that, so it's just going to be interesting to see what they do with his character. I still find it kind of awkward that, like, this Ben Affleck Batman versus Superman Batman is just gone. I guess it will have to be. I don't know. What does Henry Cavill Superman think? This is when you get into these questions, you just realize how much of a cluster F of a universe they've made. As for the rumor of Jeffrey Dean Morgan still apparently being eyed for the Thomas Wayne role in this movie, that would be interesting. I guess it could still fulfill that Flashpoint story of Thomas Wayne being able to speak to his son, if that makes sense, in such a way. Instead, in this movie, maybe Keaton's Batman from that 89 Tim Burton movie and obviously the sequels gets to speak to his dad, but it'll be like two old guys. I don't know. So here's my video, guys. That's my reaction. There's just a whole bunch. It gives us answers, but opens up more questions down the road. So how do you feel about this? Obviously, we can get excited about the very, like, oh my god, Keaton's coming back to play Batman. But I kind of have a bigger question about the larger repercussions of this. This Flashpoint movie could fix and definitely set the tone and the kind of narrative, the baseline new narrative for the DCEU moving forward, and they're going to take big strides and strokes at trying to achieve that. This is Flashpoint after all. Anyway though, everyone, let me know what you think of this down in the comments below. Do you think it's an amazing idea that Michael Keaton will be reprising his, well, at least he's in talks to reprise his role as the Batman from his movie? How do you think that will affect this movie? What do you think of Jeffrey Dean Morgan still potentially playing Thomas Wayne alongside this Michael Keaton Batman in this new Flashpoint world that Ezra Miller's Flash creates during this movie? How do you think this will affect the story? How do you feel about him potentially appearing in multiple DC movies here on out in a Nick Fury-esque advisory badass, I guess, older Bruce Wayne role? There's so many things we can talk about and speculate about in the comments, guys, so I'd love to see you there. Other than that, you could talk about this further with me in my Discord community. I have a Patreon and a join button for the channel if you want to help support the content that I create a little bit more. Other than that, follow me on Twitter. But yeah, I think I've blabbered enough of my thoughts, so thank you so much for watching. Hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you, Bat Family, in the next video. Goodbye.